Get it, get it, get it, get it, get it. Whoa! Here we go. Oh yeah.
All right, it's Cajun Classic Cars TV, and we're talking with Jim with Vicari Auctions. Thanks for talking with us, Jim.
Sure, glad to be here. Great, thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Wanted to introduce our viewers to you to talk a little bit about what Vicari does, and then get into the trends and things that you're seeing when it comes to buying classic cars. Because as we know, buyer beware, especially when it comes to vehicles that are, 20, 30, 40, 50, or even older. You got to be careful. And these days with the economy the way it is, you want to make sure you get more bang for your buck. So first of all, let's start off with what you guys at Vicari Auctions do.
Okay, Vicari Auction has been around for almost 30 years. We've been a part of Cruising the Coast. Hopefully everybody knows what Cruising the Coast in Biloxi is. And we've been a part of that ever since the beginning of Cruising the Coast. So we do auctions around the country, but we are best known for our Cruising the Coast auction, which we just finished a week ago. So
tell us a little bit about what you saw at Cruisin the Coast, as far as the amount of people, the excitement about what was going on, and maybe some of the cars that you guys sold.
Oh yeah. It was one of the best auctions we've had in a while, meaning there was just tons of people, tons of spectators. We ended up having almost 500 cars in the auction, and we sold about 300 and something of those in the 3 days. So it was a great crowd, great enthusiasm. It's a lot of fun, just like you see on TV.
You know what? Whenever I'm at an auction and I'm sitting next to my wife, she'll always take my hands and put them down, to to make sure I don't. No, honey, no, not yet. No, we can't afford that one.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I tell people about Vicari Auction. We'll slow the pace down if we need to. We'll explain to you what's going on, and it's not one of those, if you scratch your nose, you've done placed a bid on a Camaro. So it's not like that.
Yeah, but it is fun when you go to an auction. I don't care whether it's classic cars or just junk. When you go to an auction, it gets really exciting. And being car geeks like we are, it's one of those things that you got to make sure whatever you've got in the checkbook is whatever you got in the bank, and do your due diligence and make sure that it's what you want. And I love watching auctions. I watched a little bit of what you guys do. And you're right. You slow down. You take a little bit of time. You talk about what's going on. I love when we hear a little bit of background and the provenance of the car. That's always important as well.
I tell people it's like a car show inside in the air conditioning, and you can just walk around and look at 500 cars and enjoy the show part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and usually when I do that, they have to clean up after all the salivating I do. Of classic cars. You and I talked on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and I've got my 57 Nash and my 65 Thunderbird, but always looking for something to trade up to, or maybe get something else to get involved in and get in a project. But as we all know, it's a labor of love when you get involved in. You can get a starter car and get into it, but I always warn people: look, if you're going to get into classic cars, sports cars, make sure you're ready for the time, make sure you're ready for the expense, and the effort that you have to put into it. It's not something you're necessarily going to be able to, put it in the garage and then take it any particular day. You've got to baby these things and almost treat them like one of the kids, because you're taking a piece of history, and you are the caretaker of a piece of history.
That's exactly the way I look at it. And I tell people, you have to love it to begin with. Mm-hmm. And being a car guy that I am since childhood, I can't change a spark plug, but I can make them shine as good as anybody. So.
Yeah, everybody's got their own thing that they do. When it comes to working on motors, anything top end front, I can take care of. If it gets beyond that, it's like, okay, I'm going to give it to somebody somebody else's back who can be broken rather than me be under it. Yep. So, and sometimes it's an out of sight, out of mind. But you mentioned 500 cars. Tell us Was there a particular thing that you saw at this auction, other than being a record auction, that you saw that might have made you go, that's a bit different? People are into this. What might have been different, Jim?
No big differences, but maybe the beginning of trends. You always have the standards. You always have the Camaros that do well. You always have the Corvettes that do well. We had quite a few C2 early Corvettes this go round, which was a little bit more than usual. Like I said, Tri-5s, Camaros, Mustangs, they always do well. If I saw any trends, not that it's a new trend, but trucks. You know, C10 trucks, any kind of truck do well. I see that anything with an LS in it does well. So that might be the trends. Station wagons do well, are doing well. And that's maybe not new trends, but it's trends that's still happening, still going on.
Right. You know, you're right about the C10s, and I didn't really notice this till about 2 years ago. The aforementioned Nash broke down, and a nice gentleman that had a tow truck brought me home that day, but he was showing a C10. And it wasn't until then I could have sort of scratched my head and went, wait a minute, I am noticing a lot more trucks. And these C10s, man, they are getting a lot of attention at car shows, above the 57 Chevys, above some of the Corvettes, above some of the Mustangs. It's phenomenal to me. And these are, you know, relatively speaking, not old cars, but I guess, you know, in some cases they are, but they're not. But, you know, I mean, classic is in the eye of the beholder, I suppose, right?
Oh yeah, it is, and you know, it's not unusual at all to see C10 trucks over $100,000. But also, I tell people about the auction is that it's not just the over $100,000 cars. There's all level of cars. There'll be something for $10,000 to get you started. So you want to fix her up, there's fixer ups. So that's the great thing about it is all price range, all kinds of cars. It's what you're into.
Yeah, and you know, when you mentioned the C10 trucks, a late friend of mine who I used to do car shows with up in Tennessee and Kentucky, this goes back to the mid 2000s, and he noticed that a lot of what he called kids, you know, compared to us old guys, they were. And he noticed a lot more of the foreign cars, a lot more of the Nissans, a lot more, even the newer Camaros and even the newer Vets, even the newer Dodges, the Chargers, Challengers, and things like that. And there's a lot, you know, if you may recall, if you go back a few years in car shows, they were sort of persona non grata. They were not really, I wouldn't say they wouldn't be allowed, but the judges they sort of didn't really give them a high score. But my
Yeah.
friend was always a little bit more generous. He said, you know, if we're getting these kids into cars, no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be a 57 Chevy or a 65 T-Bird like we like. Let them get into it. Let
Oh
them
yeah.
bring their cars, because this is how the future of caretakers of cars are going to be bred. And I think that was important, because what I've noticed is, because of that love of cars, irrelevant of what it is, a lot of younger folks are actually getting into some of the deeper, older cars. And I think it's because we've had more open car shows and more open events, because a lot of times we were a closed knit community, not close knit necessarily, but closed, if you will, in the car world. Don't you see what I'm saying?
Oh, definitely. You know, I like all kinds of cars and trucks and imports and everything. I like them all. I might not want a certain kind of car or truck, but I like them all and I appreciate them all. So to each his own. Even I see a lot of people with the bicycles now wanting to bring their custom bicycles to the car shows, and that's just a stepping stone to the cars. So I encourage that.
Hey, if it's on two wheels and it burns some oil, I'll take it, right? You
Oh yeah,
know,
kids with their Power Wheels. I love to see that.
yeah, yeah. So what is a quick tip, maybe two or three, not necessarily just auctions, but when people are going out looking, maybe they see a Facebook Marketplace, a couple of big no-nos to watch out for, so people can spend their money wisely?
Uh, you know, if you have a friend that's into the mechanical part of it, bring your friend with you to look at the car. I always like to say, buy the best car that you can afford because it'll pay off in the long run. If you have that itch to build one, hey, the money's always going to be up there and your return value is always going to be a little bit lower. So buy one that's somebody else has put the money and effort into, and maybe a couple of years old, and for the best money that you can spend. That's the tips that I have for people. And then for the auctions, I tell people register your car for the auction as early as you can so we can advertise it, and then set up a reasonable reserve. I mean, do your research and decide what your car is worth. But if it's worth 30, don't try and get 75 for it. You just not going to happen.
You have to know that the love and the care and the money you put into it is so you can enjoy it. So you can get what I call on this show, million smiles an hour.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Now, if you make money, great. But to your point, a reasonable price to know what you think you're going to get. And if it pays the bills and that's what you're looking for, great. If it pays for you to buy that next car that's on the auction block, then so much the better. But yeah, good point. You mentioned that, you don't even change a spark plug. That's a great idea to bring a friend along that can, because you're too into it. You get there and you're like, oh my gosh, I love this color. Or my dad had one of these. It's great to have somebody else that can bring you down, or not bring you down emotionally, but bring you down from the excitement and even that up and pull you aside and say, wait, Jim, wait, Brian, I don't know about this. So if folks want to get involved in Vicari Auctions, tell them how they can get in touch with you guys. And maybe kind of give us a little preview of what, when we could see the next auction that we could participate in.
Yeah. VicariAuction.com is the website. You can go there. You can look at the auction that we just finished, the cars that did not sell. You can look at those cars and see what the high bid went to, and then you can actually still buy those cars. Our next auction is in the springtime in April, probably Biloxi. Date hasn't been set yet, but we're always looking for different cities to have the auction in. But go to the website. It tells you everything about consigning a car, how much it costs, setting reserve, everything that you'd need to know. And then always call the office, ask for me. I'm always glad to talk to everybody and explain things to them. It's kind of like it's my thing, so I'm happy to talk about it. It's fun.
Isn't it great when you're involved in something, your work is involved in something that you love?
Yeah, it
It's
is.
that's always exciting. We'll go ahead when this video is posted. We'll post the link so they can get to your website as well. And Jim, my hope is that down the line, whenever you see trends or anything happening or an auction's coming up, that you and I could talk once a month, once every couple of months, and post this so people can learn a little bit about more, not only about Vicari Auctions, but also about what's going on out there in the classic car world. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes today with Cajun Classic Cars TV.
Enjoyed it. Thank you.